he got that, I don't know if you've seen it, he got a crazy scar on his neck too. He got cut while he's been in prison.
New footage of Tay-K just surfaced from jail, and it's got people talking. The clip shows what looks like a serious keloid scar on his neck, and word is, things have been rough for him behind bars. We got the full breakdown of the footage, what really happened, and why Tay-K's 80-year sentence might be the least of his problems right now. Shocking prison footage reveals the dark reality. Now, I know y'all have seen the headlines. Tay-K gets 80 years. Rapper sentenced for second murder. But what the mainstream media ain't talking about is the disturbing footage and photos that surface showing what prison life has really done to this young man. And when I say disturbing, I mean the kind of images that make you question everything about our justice system. Let me start with what got everybody talking. In November 2024, when Tay-K appeared in court for his murder trial, photos from the court appearance showed him with a visible scar on his neck. Now, this wasn't just some little scratch or mark. This was a significant keloid scar that looked like someone tried to take this man's life. DJ Academics shared these images on Instagram, and the hip-hop community went into overdrive with speculation about prison safety. The comment section was going crazy with people asking what happened to him, and is he safe in there? Because let's keep it 100. When you see a scar like that on someone's neck, especially someone who's locked up, your mind immediately goes to the worst-case scenario. 1090 Jake, who covers a lot of street news and hip-hop culture, didn't hold back when he talked about what he saw.
And he got that, I don't know if you've seen it, he got a crazy scar on his neck too. He got cut while he's been in prison. Yeah, he got a nice little keloid scar. He looks different, and not in a good way. He looks like he's aged a lot, and prison will do that to you.
Jake straight up said what everybody was thinking, that Tay-K got cut in prison. And if you know anything about prison politics, getting cut on the neck ain't no accident. That's either someone trying to kill you or someone sending a very serious message. Either way, it's not good. But the neck scar wasn't the only thing that had people concerned. Fans noted that Tay-K looked significantly older than his 24 years, was wearing glasses, and appeared to have lost weight despite reportedly working out. This is a kid who should be in his prime, but he looked like he'd been through hell and back. Now, this wasn't the first time Tay-K had spoken out about his treatment behind bars. In 2022, he posted on X about being mistreated at Bexar County Adult Detention Center, describing his treatment as being like a ferret or a hamster. When someone compares their treatment in jail to how you treat a small animal in a cage, that tells you everything you need to know about the conditions he's dealing with. But it gets worse. This kid has had multiple incidents while locked up that show just how dangerous prison life has been for him. In August 2018, Tay-K was found with a mobile phone hidden in his sock at Tarrant County Jail. Getting caught with contraband got him moved to maximum security and put in 23-hour solitary confinement. Imagine being locked in a tiny cell for 23 hours a day. That's psychological torture for real. Then in March 2019, he allegedly attempted to form a gang called Rugrats to rival Puro Tango Blast while in jail. The name might sound cartoonish, but this was serious gang activity that landed him back in solitary. This shows you how prison can change someone. Here's a kid trying to survive in an environment where you either join up or become a target. The recent viral footage and photos have reignited conversations about what's really happening to high-profile inmates in the system. When DDG reacted to Tay-K's recent 80-year sentence, you could hear the shock in his voice.
80 years. That nigga was tripping though.
Really getting sentenced or what?
No, he got 80 years.
Like recently? Or
He just got sentenced to 80 years. He been in jail for like damn near 10 years.
What is it really?
DDG was confused about the timeline, but his reaction shows how surreal this whole situation is. Here's someone who's been locked up for years, getting cut up in prison, and then getting hit with another 80-year sentence on top of the 55 years he was already serving. The timing of these viral images is significant because they came right before Tay-K's second murder trial concluded in April 2025. On April 14th, 2025, he was found guilty of murder for the 2017 killing of photographer Mark Anthony Saldivar. The next day, he was sentenced to 80 years in prison, which will run concurrent with his existing 55-year sentence. During the sentencing, the judge had some powerful words about Tay-K's situation.
I don't know where your mom is, don't know where your father is. I know that you had a rough childhood. And I do know that these offenses occurred when you were very young. And I understand the state of the law, what people consider an adult. I listened to the testimony of the expert that was brought by defense counsel. You've already been sentenced to murder in the other county, and then you have a murder here. And the sentence for 55 years, that's a stiff sentence. this 80-year sentence is a stiff sentence.
The judge acknowledged that Tay-K had a rough childhood and was very young when these crimes happened, but she also made it clear that actions have consequences. But here's what's really wild. Even with these two massive sentences, Tay-K will be eligible for parole after 40 years, due to Texas law requiring half of the longest sentence for aggravated offenses. That means if he survives prison and stays out of trouble, he could potentially get out when he's around 64 years old. But here's the thing, surviving 40 years in prison when you're already getting cut up and dealing with gang politics, that's a whole different challenge. The viral footage we're seeing now is just a preview of what the next 4 decades could look like for this young man. The reaction on social media has been intense. On Twitter, people were sharing real-time updates about his trial and expressing concern about the images. Users were reporting on his conviction and sentence, with many noting the distinction between murder and capital murder charges. On Instagram, the focus was more personal. People were genuinely worried about his physical and mental health, especially after seeing that neck scar. What makes this story even more complex is that while people are concerned about Tay-K's treatment in prison, there are real victims and families who are dealing with their own trauma. Mark Anthony Saldivar was a 23-year-old photographer who lost his life, and Ethan Walker was a 21-year-old who was killed during a home invasion. The judge made this point during sentencing.
But the complainant in this case is deceased. And you need to internalize that the complainant in this case is deceased and that his family is never going to see him again.
So we're dealing with a situation where there's real tragedy on all sides. Families have lost loved ones, and now we're watching a young man potentially being destroyed by the prison system, regardless of what he did to end up there. The viral nature of these prison images has also raised questions about how the justice system handles high-profile inmates. When someone has millions of fans and their story is being followed internationally, does that make them more of a target inside, or does it provide some protection because people are watching? What we're seeing with Tay-K seems to suggest that fame doesn't protect you behind bars. If anything, it might make things worse. That neck scar didn't come from nowhere, and the fact that he's already had multiple disciplinary issues shows that he's struggling to navigate prison politics. This brings us to a bigger question. What's the point of a justice system if it's just going to destroy people instead of rehabilitating them? I'm not saying Tay-K doesn't deserve to be punished for his crimes, but when we see someone getting cut up in prison and aging rapidly due to stress and violence, we have to ask whether this is really serving justice or just perpetuating more violence. The viral footage has also highlighted the broader issue of prison conditions in America. Tay-K is currently incarcerated at Bexar County Jail, and his complaints about being treated like an animal raise questions about what's happening in facilities across the country. If this is what's happening to someone with a platform who can speak out, what's happening to inmates who don't have a voice? But how did Tay-K end up here? From viral hit to murder conviction, the rise and fall. Let me paint you the picture of who Tay-K was before he became a household name. Tamor Trayvon McIntyre was born on June 16, 2000, in Long Beach, California, into a family with deep ties to the Baby Insane Crips gang. His father, Kevin Beverly, was locked up for most of his early childhood, and his mother was also affiliated with the same set. So from day one, this kid was born into a world where the streets were calling his name. Family moved around a lot trying to find stability. When Tay-K was 8, they moved to Las Vegas. And then when he was 10, they relocated to Arlington, Texas after his father got out of prison. Arlington was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to get away from the gang life and give the kids a better opportunity. But sometimes you can't run from what's already in your blood. Tay-K's relationship with his parents was strained. He rated it a 6 out of 10 and said they provided little support, forcing him to become self-reliant. His sister Kayla has talked about how they relied heavily on their grandparents, especially their grandmother, for stability. That's a lot for a young kid to handle. Essentially raising yourself while trying to figure out your place in the world. School wasn't working out for him either. He enrolled at James Martin High School in Arlington, but dropped out during his freshman year. With everything going on at home and the lack of parental guidance, education took a back seat. Here's where the story gets interesting. This is when music became his outlet. Around 2014, when he was just 14 years old, Tay-K discovered rap. He was influenced by artists like Soulja Boy and Chief Keef, and you could hear those influences in his raw, unfiltered style. He joined a group called Daytona Boys with friends Pimpies and Santana Sage, and they released their first track, Drift, on SoundCloud in December 2014. But Tay-K had bigger dreams than just being part of a group. He launched his solo career with Biff Zanin in August 2015, followed by Sly Cooper in September 2015. These tracks started gaining traction locally in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You could tell this kid had talent. There was something authentic about his delivery that resonated with people living that same life. His song Mega Man, released in March 2016, became popular after his arrest later that year. But while Tay-K was building his music career, he was also getting deeper into street activities that would change everything. On July 26, 2016, Tay-K, then 16, participated in a home invasion in Mansfield, Texas, targeting 21-year-old drug dealer Ethan Walker. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a planned robbery that went tragically wrong. The plan involved accomplices distracting Walker while Tay-K and others entered the home. During the struggle, Walker was killed and several others were injured. After the incident, Tay-K was arrested and placed on house arrest with an ankle monitor. Most people in that situation would lay low, maybe get a good lawyer, and hope for the best. But Tay-K wasn't most people. On March 27, 2017, he cut off his ankle monitor and fled from San Antonio to Elizabeth, New Jersey. At 16 years old, he became a fugitive. Now here's where the story gets absolutely insane. While he was on the run from the law, instead of laying low and staying quiet, Tay-K decided to record what would become his biggest hit. During this fugitive period, he recorded and released The Race, literally posing with his wanted poster in the music video. The audacity was unreal. Here's a 16-year-old kid who's wanted for murder, and instead of hiding, he's making a music video where he's holding his own wanted poster and rapping about being on the run. The lyrics were raw and unfiltered. I'm Lil Tay-K. I don't think you want no action. And your boy's deep? Well, let's get to subtracting. These weren't just bars. They were confessions being broadcast to the world. But here's the crazy part. The song became a massive hit. The Race reached number 44 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was certified platinum. We're talking over 250 million views on YouTube. This song was everywhere. Radio, clubs, people bumping it in their cars. Meanwhile, law enforcement was using that same video to try to track him down. The song's success was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it made Tay-K famous and financially successful. On the other hand, prosecutors later used the video and lyrics as evidence in his murder trials, arguing that they demonstrated his criminal intent. Think about that. Your biggest hit becomes the key evidence used to convict you. But while The Race was climbing the charts, Tay-K was making moves that would seal his fate. While on the run, he was involved in the robbery and murder of 23-year-old photographer Mark Anthony Saldivar outside a Chick-fil-A in San Antonio. This wasn't just another robbery. This was the cold-blooded murder of an innocent man who was just trying to work. Tay-K and accomplices arranged a fake photo shoot with Saldivar, then robbed him of his camera equipment. During the robbery, Saldivar was beaten, shot, and killed. A photographer, someone who was probably just trying to make an honest living, lost his life because some kids wanted to steal camera equipment. There was also an incident in Arlington where Tay-K attacked and robbed Oni Skip Pepe, holding him at gunpoint and knocking him unconscious. This shows the pattern of violence that was escalating during his time as a fugitive. The whole time, The Race was making him famous, but his time on the run was running out. He was captured by U.S. Marshals in Elizabeth, New Jersey on June 30th, 2017. 3 months of being one of the most wanted teenagers in America, and it was all over. When I think about this period, it's wild to consider what was going through this kid's head. He was 16, 17 years old, making music that millions of people were listening to, but also committing violent crimes that would destroy multiple lives. It's like he was living in two different worlds at the same time, the world of hip-hop stardom and the world of street violence. Even from jail, Tay-K was still thinking about his music career. In a phone interview with Adam22 from No Jumper, you could hear the complexity of his situation.
So we got this song coming out real soon, this hard song. We ended up putting Block Boy JB on it, and nobody's ever heard you speak on this song at all. So have you heard it?
Here he was, locked up and facing life in prison, but still talking about collaborations and new music like it was business as usual. Adam22 even pointed out the surreal nature of the situation.
Yeah, Memphis. You never made your way to Memphis?
Nah, I never been in Memphis.
Interesting. All right, but you know, that's crazy to think about that. You probably would have already seen the world right now if you weren't locked up. Like there's crazy amount of opportunities that be available to you right now.
That's the tragedy of this whole story. Tay-K had real talent and real opportunities, but the streets took him in a different direction. The first trial took place in Tarrant County, Texas. On July 19th, 2019, Tay-K was found guilty of murder and aggravated robbery. 4 days later, on July 23rd, 2019, he was sentenced to 55 years for murder, plus additional time for the robbery charges, all served concurrently. 55 years. He was 19 years old when he got that sentence. That means he wouldn't be eligible for parole until he's in his 40s, assuming he survives that long in prison. But remember, he still had that second murder case hanging over his head. The case for the Saldivar murder took much longer to come to trial. Tay-K was indicted for capital murder in November 2019, but the trial didn't happen until 2025. Capital murder in Texas can get you the death penalty or life without parole, so this was literally a life or death situation. In February 2024, Tay-K made a decision that shocked everyone. He rejected a plea deal and chose to go to trial. Usually when you're facing capital murder charges, you take whatever deal they offer you, but Tay-K said no, let's go to trial. The trial itself was complicated by his fame. It needed a jury pool of 200 people because the race was so well known that finding unbiased jurors was nearly impossible. Think about that. His biggest hit was so famous that it potentially prejudiced an entire jury pool. The trial lasted from April 1st to April 14th, 2025, with key witness Joanna Reyes testifying that Tay-K was the gunman in Saldivar's murder. When the verdict came down, it was both good news and bad news. He was found guilty of murder rather than capital murder, which meant he avoided the death penalty. But the sentencing was still harsh. On April 15, 2025, he was sentenced to 80 years in prison to run concurrent with his existing 55-year sentence. The judge had some powerful words during sentencing about his situation and the victims. Prison politics, viral fame, and the future. But first, let's address the elephant in the room, that neck scar and what it tells us about life behind bars for high-profile inmates. Prison is a different world with its own rules and politics, and when you're famous, that can make you either protected or more of a target, depending on the situation. The fact that Tay-K has had multiple disciplinary issues while incarcerated, from the cell phone incident in 2018 to allegedly trying to start a prison gang in 2019, shows how difficult it's been for him to navigate prison life. And now we're seeing the physical evidence of that struggle in the form of that neck scar. 1090. Jake didn't mince words when he talked about what he saw in those viral images.
He got cut while he's been in prison. So, yeah, he got a nice little keloid scar. He looks different, and not in a good way. He looks like he's aged a lot. And prison will do that to you.
This brings up serious questions about prison conditions and safety. Tay-K himself complained in 2022 about being treated like a ferret or hamster at Bexar County Adult Detention Center. When someone with a platform is speaking out about mistreatment and then shows up in court with a neck scar, we have to ask what's happening to inmates who don't have a voice. The viral nature of these images has also reignited the #FreeTake movement on social media. People are sharing posts about his case, expressing concern for his safety, and debating whether his sentences are fair given his age when the crimes were committed. But this movement has to contend with the reality that real people lost their lives and that Tay-K has continued to have problems while locked up. During his recent sentencing, the judge tried to address this complexity.
You're still alive. You can still better yourself. If you end up in prison for the rest of your life, you're still alive. You still can improve yourself. Your family can still visit you.
She was trying to give him hope while also acknowledging the severity of his crimes. But the viral footage suggests that bettering yourself in prison is easier said than done when you're dealing with violence and potentially dangerous conditions. Tay-K argued in a 2023 social media post that he should have been tried as a juvenile, citing his age during the crimes and alleging racial bias in his sentencing. He pointed out that a white co-defendant received only probation while he got 55 years, saying, "I bet if I was a lil white kid, they wouldn't have gave me no 55 years for a crime I was alleged to play the most insignificant role in when I was 16. This touches on larger issues about how the justice system treats young black and brown defendants versus white defendants. There's research showing that black youth are more likely to be tried as adults and receive harsher sentences than their white counterparts for similar crimes. Whether you think Tay-K's sentences are appropriate or not, his case has become a focal point for these broader discussions about racial equity in the justice system. The use of the race as evidence in both of his trials has also sparked important debates about artistic expression versus literal confession. Prosecutors used the song and video to argue that Tay-K was demonstrating his criminal intent, but critics argue that this sets a dangerous precedent for how rap lyrics can be used against the artists. The reality is that hip-hop has always been about storytelling, and sometimes that storytelling involves fictional or exaggerated narratives about street life. But when someone is literally posing with their wanted poster while rapping about being a fugitive, the line between art and documentary becomes becomes blurred. This has implications that go far beyond Tay-K's case. If rap lyrics can be used as evidence of criminal intent, what does that mean for artistic freedom? And given that this practice seems to disproportionately affect young black artists, are we creating a situation where certain types of artistic expression are essentially criminalized? Wrongful Death Suit says Slash, arguing that they should be compensated from the profits of music that was created around the time of their loved one's murder. This raises difficult ethical questions. Should families of victims be entitled to profits from music created by their killers? And what about the artists' families who might also be depending on that income? There are no easy answers, but these cases are setting precedents for how the music industry handles profits from controversial artists. Despite everything that's happened, Tay-K still maintains over 3.1 million monthly listeners on Spotify, showing that his music continues to resonate with people. The Race alone has hundreds of millions of views across platforms. This creates a strange situation where someone who's likely going to spend the rest of his life in prison continues to have cultural influence and generate revenue. The ongoing popularity of his music also raises questions about our society's relationship with violence and criminality. Are we glorifying these actions by continuing to stream the music? Or is there value in the raw, unfiltered storytelling that shows the real consequences of street life? When you look at the viral footage of Tay-K now, aged beyond his years, scarred, wearing glasses, looking like he's been through hell, it's hard to argue that his music glamorizes anything. If anything, his current condition serves as a powerful counter-narrative to the idea that the street life leads to success and fame. Looking at the bigger picture, Tay-K's story represents a lot of the challenges facing young people in communities where violence and poverty intersect. Arlington, Texas, where he grew up, has significant gang activity and economic challenges, with approximately 1 in 4 children living in poverty. These conditions create situations where gang involvement can seem like an attractive option for young people looking for belonging, protection, or economic opportunity. That brings us to the end of this video. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.